right. Welcome, everybody. Third Due, First In podcast. This is something a little different here today. I don't have my partner, Gino. I'm stuck with our executive producer, Chief Dan Haeck, as our co-host today. Hello, Dan. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Gino is working shift. Gino's working shift in McKeesport, so that's why we won't have him here today. So, all right, our guest today, before we get to our guest, our guest today is going to be Council President Patrick Catena. So we're excited to get him on. But before we get there, Dan's going to talk a little bit about where our topic is today, discussing the county meetings and about what we could do in the future of Allegheny County to maybe, fund some type of paid staffing like we're talking about on the last episode. So just want to
it's kind of a continuation of last week, but now we have Pat on, and I really appreciate him coming on to talk about this and answer some questions firsthand. So I just wanted to, what's wrong, Michelle? Huh? Oh, you're good. That's all right. So I just wanted to say a few words about that. Keith and I discussed this, and I am going to read this because there's a lot of numbers in here that there's no way I could have read, and I want to get right. So we dropped a pin on a map in the South Zone. No need to name these departments, but we dropped the pin in the South Zone, and we selected a 5-mile radius, which encompassed 8 fire districts. These 8 departments include 14 stations, 17 engines, 10 rescues, 10 trucks, 11 squads, and a brush truck. There are about, by our best estimate, 260 firefighters, of which only a small fraction respond to calls with any regularity, but all of which get an investment of about $20,000 of PPE and equipment related. And it's not just vehicles and dead wood manpower that we're wasting millions of dollars on, but real estate as well. Those 8 departments have 14 stations in a 5-mile radius, soon to be 15 stations. I know a study is essential in determining what is needed and where, but I'm sure it's pretty safe to say that you don't need 15 stations in a 5-mile radius. And I know this is something that everybody already knows. Just want to get this out there to set this up for Pat, who's been working on this for a very long time and is very knowledgeable about it. So these same 8 communities also have, I believe, 4 EMS services that could even supplement manpower and rescue if needed. Anyway, at the rate we're going, it won't be long before there will be beautiful fire stations across our county filled with millions of dollars of apparatus and equipment that sit empty with no manpower to use it. Just because it's there doesn't mean your residents are safe. Nothing happens without the manpower. So everyone always says the same thing. There's no funding. There's no money. Well, other than stop buying fire trucks that we can't man, building stations that we don't need, and outfitting firefighters that don't respond, there is a way if there's a will. And this has been being talked about for a very long time. I sure hope there's a will now because it's definitely needed. So Pat's probably heard this scenario 8 million times, but Keith and I did some research and figured out that 1/4 mil county-wide fire tax would generate about $18,750,000 annually. At $30 per hour, it would cost approximately $1 million in salary for a crew of 4. Add health insurance, retirement plan, and some maintenance assistance for the apparatus used, and that number becomes approximately $2 million for each crew of 4, and that's 24/7, 365. That's about 20 firefighters hired for each 4-man crew to cover that whole year. That 1/4 mil countywide tax puts 8 crews of 4 throughout the county for 24-hour coverage, about 160 firefighters hired. The crews could respond on any number of excess unmanned apparatus from any number of strategically located stations throughout the county. This formula allows for money to equip the new hires with PPE. To simplify this formula,
You're going to miss a call now.
Yeah. To simplify this formula, you can use about $100,000 per firefighter times 160 the $16 million. That leaves about $2,750,000 for PPE. So $250,000 to stop the bleeding and save lives. So that's that. I know it sounds oversimplified, and I understand that, and I'm sure Pat will complicate it because it probably needs complicated. But just real quick, in addition, there are other sources of funding. The local fire tax, some departments have a fire tax. Some of them are limited for use to purchase just rolling stock. We don't really need more rolling stock right now. We need less. And that money should also be permitted to use for firefighter salaries. And if it had to be tied into training, some of the firefighters working as administrators should be tasked with writing grant applications. And on the state relief money, those firefighter hires, if they would allow some of the state relief money to be used for the same thing, they could be hired as instructors as well, as long as they're certified for that. So there it is. That's what everybody's talking about. I'm sure there's people already saying, yeah, right, you're never going to get the funding. You can't do this, you can't do that. But it's definitely time to try something. So, Keith, you want to?
Yeah, so things are a little bit different here today because so typically Gina will be sitting in that seat and Dan will be sitting in the producer seat. But today we have a new producer. It's Michelle, Dan's wife. So you heard her chime in a little bit because I actually forgot to do our promotion for FireCam that I told her I was going to do at the start of the show.
What will we do?
So thank you for Michelle for reminding that. So I just want to remind everybody for FireCam is our sponsor for our show. For those who run towards the heat, the FireCam Mini 1080 is built for one thing: getting the job done in the worst conditions. Survives up to 900 degrees Fahrenheit, captures crystal clear HD on 1080p. And thanks to our sponsor, FireCam is making it possible for one of the first 500 at Third Due First In subscribers on YouTube to win one of their helmet cams. So go check out firecam.com. They make an awesome product. We've already watched some of the video from their product on our show, and we look forward to seeing more. So thanks again to FireCam for sponsoring our show. So before we bring on Councilman Pat Catena, I want to play a little clip here from KDKA that happened a little while ago that he was on to explain what's going on here. 1 second.
Yeah, we got a whole new supply of fire cams and flashlights that you can see here on the bay table. So let's get those YouTube subscribers up and at least give one of them away. And we're working on getting them distributed to other firefighters as well, so we can get some footage.
One too many. I mean, we have to figure out what the future looks like and how we prevent anything like that moving forward.
Fires have already killed 9 people in Allegheny County this year, and some fire stations say they're already on pace to have another record year of calls for help. Good evening. Thanks for joining us at 11. I'm Ken Rice. Allegheny County leaders say now's the time to fix this before it gets out of control. Jennifer Barrasso spoke with West Mifflin's fire chief and Allegheny County's council president about how thinly volunteers are being stretched.
Ken, West Mifflin's number 3 fire department is all volunteer. The chief tells me there are a dozen volunteer firefighters responding to more 911 calls than ever. These calls are for everything from fires to crashes and false alarms. Already this year, the station has answered 153 calls, 13 more than this same time last year when they went to a record-breaking 525 calls. That call number has been going up every year since 2021. Now, the chief here says they are still able to respond to all those calls, but Allegheny County Council President Pat Catena saying that something needs to change now. Allegheny County Council President Pat Catena sounding the alarm after 9 people died from fires in the county so far this year. The latest killed a young couple in Findlay Township Saturday morning.
On a sense of urgency, I think now. I mean, having 9 deaths in Allegheny County this year, that's a lot of deaths for fires. And that's really concerning. That really worries me.
Also concerning for Catena, the dwindling number of volunteer firefighters. Pennsylvania's state fire commissioner says it's down to about 38,000 compared to more than 300,000 in the 1970s. Catena says he's meeting with fire companies to get ideas on how to fix the problem.
Fire services are at a critical mass at this point. We just don't have enough volunteers.
At West Mifflin number 3 Fire Department, longtime chief Craig McDivitt had a deadly fire in February. His station has a dozen volunteers, but he says he had 3 times more in 2000.
What is your concern with if we continue down this road and do nothing?
My fear is the same thing that other chiefs fear. We're going to get dispatched to a call and nobody's going to show up.
Chief McDivitt said getting volunteers and retaining them is hard.
We'll set up a big display and, basically beg people to join.
And firefighting, the equipment to trucks is expensive.
We have more firefighting apparatus in Allegheny County than basically all of New York City and all of the New York area combined. That's an astounding amount.
If there aren't major changes, and I don't know how to go about that, better minds than mine are working on it, but I see taxes increasing and paid departments coming.
Chief McDivitt believes paid firefighters is the solution. He points out that other departments, they're offering stipends. There are tax credits. He feels those are just Band-Aids. He also points out that in Mill Creek Township near Erie, that is being covered right now, full-time paid firefighters. Meantime, Pat Catena tells me he is going to meet with local firefighters Thursday. In West Mifflin, Jennifer Barrasso, KDK TV News.
All right. Well, thank you to KDK for that story. So let's get to it. Let's bring on our guest here. Patrick Catena has served on Allegheny Council since 2017. He's currently serving on his 3rd term as president of council. He also had sponsored the Allegheny County Real Estate Tax Rebate Program for volunteer firefighters and EMS that's currently enacted in our county, so we'll benefit from that. And his late father was a longtime member of Carnegie Volunteer Fire Department. So welcome to the show, President Catena. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for having me today.
No problem. And this is how dedicated he is. He was on his way home from a meeting, and he's in his car joining us on the show. Yep. Not driving though.
I didn't want to blow you guys off. This is too important of an issue to blow you guys off. So here I pulled over to the side of the road to go on the podcast.
Right.
When that video that you just played, actually, I was off in the number of deaths at that point in time. I believe I said 9. There was actually more than that, if I remember correctly, now that I go back. And that's very concerning. When we have fire fatalities, you talked about it at the top of the show, we're surrounded by so much equipment, so many different fire departments. The problem that we have is manpower. I mean, it's the lack of volunteers. It's the lack of turning people out. It's the lack of people being able to respond to calls as quickly and efficiently as possible. Back in the day, and I joke about this, and I've talked about this at all of my meetings that I've had throughout the entire county. And I said, as a kid, I grew up, and I remember as a youngster, in the middle of the night, I'd hear all this. I'd hear the whistle go off, as we called it. The whistle would go off, and I'd hear all this commotion outside my bedroom door, and it was my dad putting on his fire, and trying to get dressed and what have you, and get down the stairs, and all this noise, and there were some expletives being thrown during all of this time, obviously. And I used to look out the bedroom window, and I used to see the Pontiac go flying down the street with the blue light on it, go rushing to the station. Unfortunately, in today's modern times, with homes being constructed as they are, we don't have that luxury anymore. We have about 3 minutes to get to a call. And unfortunately, that's just not enough time from someone responding from their home or what have you to get to the station and to get turned out and to get to the call. It's We don't have that amount of time. We don't have that luxury anymore.
Right.
So I started thinking, I mean, some of my local volunteer firemen reached out to me early on. And by the time that I started actually talking to KDK about this, I think that was probably the third or fourth meeting that was taking place at that point in time, because this all started locally, because obviously my connection to Carnegie, and with the Carnegie Volunteer Fire Department, I was the president of council in Carnegie for a long time. And I had a connection with our fire department, obviously, and they reached out to me and started talking to me about the issues that they're facing, obviously the lack of volunteers, the lack of manpower, and started telling me that we knew this was, we were trying to prepare for the future. And we don't know what the future looks like. And at that point, I didn't know what the future looked like either, but I knew that at some point, we would need to start having this discussion about the future of volunteer firefighting in Allegheny County. And you brought up, like I said, the excellent point at the top of the hour about all the equipment and everything that we have. And how do we fix the volunteer issue? Or what do we do? Because in my district, for instance, I have a number of smaller communities that probably couldn't afford paid fire protection per se. It would cost them astronomical amounts to try to, if they had to go to a fully paid model, I don't know how they could possibly afford it at a local level. And that really started to worry me, because obviously firefighting services, it's not a county issue in the state of PA. It's local. I mean, local responsibility for providing fire protection. So that was my first hurdle in trying to figure out how do we figure this all out, because I know it's a local issue and it needs to be dealt with at a local level. But they reached out to the county, so I was willing to take up the charge for them, and I started meeting with them, trying to brainstorm. We had a few meetings. We talked about what would it look like if the county provided their own fire services, and possibly a regional model. I mean, possibly a north, south, east, west model. We talked about that. Then there were a few more meetings that took place, and it got to the point that more people were coming from different areas outside of my district. And at that point, I got a little bit concerned, because I knew people were going to start to chatter, and I didn't want the wrong message being sent. So at that point, that's when I said to my colleagues, I'm like, look, we need to roll this out to everybody in the county. We need to have a big meeting. And that's when Wilkins stepped up to actually host us. And we had a decent sized meeting. We had the city of Pittsburgh was even in the room at this meeting. And it was a good discussion, but there were a lot of questions at this meeting, not a whole lot of answers, but the general consensus is that we need to do something. We need to start having this discussion now. And the reason I say that is because I think we started talking about 911 consolidation back in the 90s. And in 2025, we're still not fully consolidated for 911. So if there's something to be had from this conversation, it's that when you're talking with government, you're dealing with government, things move incrementally slow. So I'm not sure if we'll entirely solve for all of this in my lifetime, but at least I want to start the discussion and see what we can do at what the low-hanging fruit are, what the long-term plan is. There's a lot that I think we can do. I mean, possibly for low-hanging fruit that we might be able to roll out over the next few years. And obviously the much larger plan would be to try to figure out, how do we encourage consolidation or how do we come up with a regional model at a county level, similar to what Maryland has with a paid service and some sort of hybrid, possibly with volunteers supporting it. There's lots of things that we can do, that we can look at, like I said, I thought it was especially helpful to start having this discussion now, because we need to start talking about solutions. And I mean, county council has really stepped up behind me, and my public safety chair, Michelle Nacarati Chapkus, took this on. Her father was a police officer, so she's well aware of public safety. She ran with this idea because as president of county council, I'd like to say I had all the time. I have a lot of time to deal with this, but in a reality, unfortunately, I mean, I'm getting pulled in many different directions. So Michelle offered to lead the charge for me. We passed a resolution before our summer recess back in June, if I recall, June or July, basically for county council committing to working with the county executive, working together to basically drive this issue and try to put together some strategies, or try to come up with some approaches to how we deal with this, like I said, in the short term and in the long term. And how do we basically all work together? And when I say all to work together, I mean, that's not only the volunteer firefighters, that's the local elected official, because the local elected officials are the ones going to be needing to drive this. If this is truly where we need to be going, we're going to need their buy-in, since, like I said, a lot of this is a local service. So they're going to be the ones needing to step up. And the funny thing is, at two of my meetings, I had two volunteer fire chiefs basically make the comment that if our local officials only knew how bad we really sucked, they would be scared. And that was really eye-opening and enlightening to me as a county official, that, I mean, you're going to have a lot of different departments, and there's not going to be I'd like to say there's going to be one solution for all of them, but realistically there's not going to be. You're always going to have departments that are better off, have better staffing, might not want to participate, what have you. And I understand all that. And what county council did is basically try to divide up the county into 4 working zones, so that they would have basically a dedicated member of county council sitting down with a steering committee basically in each of these zones to basically hear from them firsthand, and us to have smaller meetings, hopefully, with this steering committee and local elected officials to try to drive this process and see how we go from there. I know what my ideas are, but I don't want to force my ideas on anybody. I want the buy-in from the general public. I want the buy-in from the volunteer firefighters, and I want the buy-in from the local officials. So I know I've talked an awful lot at this point in time. So I'll let you guys, I mean, any questions that you have, I mean, I'm open to them. So that's the general background on all of this, though. I mean, to try to put it in a nutshell.
Well, that alone was extremely helpful to show us where we're at. Michelle, you can put comments up as we go, and he can answer any questions they have. But real quick, the numbers I threw up there, is that, I mean, I did research it. Does it sound about right? 100,000 for a firefighter? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, $250,000, I know people are always going to complain no matter how much it is, but $250,000 doesn't sound horrible. If they could possibly get 8 4-man crews 24/7 throughout the county. That's going to be a huge help if that could ever come to fruition.
It would be a huge help. It would provide a dedicated staffing source, obviously. So there's a lot of different ways we can tackle this. But we're going to need to have buy-in. I mean, basically that's what it comes down to. I mean, we're going to need the buy-in from the local elected officials.
Hey, Pat, if you don't mind, can you run through some of the things that have been thrown out there, that maybe some of the ideas that you find interesting, or just some of the ones that are coming up that you hear a lot?
One of the ones that I've thought about is actually the county funding a model department or what have you, and seeking a department that might be interested with a municipality that might be interested, where the county would actually fund a paid staff at that department and they would actually run calls. It would be entirely voluntary, so we could get around some of the state law requirements, obviously. And like I said, I mean, I would need to work. I mean, it would need the local buy-in, as I keep going back to, because that's who's going to drive the process. The other one would be, I mean, bringing in this. I don't want to touch. I shouldn't say I don't want to touch too much. The other idea that I came up with is, I mean, using county employees. But I can be on. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I have to be careful because, I mean, one of the things that I've talked about in the past is that I don't want to. It's going to take the city of Pittsburgh and county working together on a solution. And with the collective bargaining agreements that we have that the city has in place, I don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize the relationship between the city and the county. So I think we need to be especially careful if we go down that route. And I think that would take a little bit more finessing and some more discussions with the city of Pittsburgh, because like I said, the city of Pittsburgh and the county ultimately are going to need, if we're going to move forward in the broad scheme of things farther down the road, we're ultimately going to need to move forwards together. And that's what I said at the Wilkins meeting.
Right. No, they're good ideas.
Yeah. So obviously, you mentioned like the county employees has EMA been any of the Allegheny County Emergency Service been part of these discussions or been in these meetings at all?
Emergency services has been involved. There's still more discussions to take place, obviously, and they're going to be a lot more involved when we go to these when we start having these regional meetings. I mean, these early on discussions, they were sort of almost brainstorming sessions. I mean, unfortunately, I wanted to have the Southern Zone meeting, but the Southern Zone meeting got with the tragedy in Clarendon. I mean, unfortunately, I mean, we had to cancel that evening because most of you guys were out all day over there in Clarendon, so that just wouldn't have been fair. So,
right. Yeah, because the reason I asked that, because it'd been mentioned on a previous podcast about how 911 sort of developed in the county. So obviously, I would just think emergency services would be a good partner to sort of organize some of these things, and plus they have employees already that could potentially be part of that.
In a perfect world, I would actually like to put an RFP out at the county level and I mean, there's obviously brighter minds that deal with this across the country. And I'm hoping that by putting out an RFP that they could possibly sort of point us in the right direction. But I'd like to sort of have these regional discussions first and involve emergency services in those regionals, and then put out sort of have a better idea what we're looking for when we put out the RFP. So we're a little bit more specific. But like I said, I mean, in a perfect world, that's what I would like to do. And the county step up and fund that RFP to provide not only short-term solutions, how do we help out firefighters in the short term and also the long term?
Another question is not exactly related to this, but it's related to the funding for the county. One of our Facebook posts talking about this commenter had gone on and was concerned about if there's apparently rumor if the reassessment doesn't get done in the county's going to have a funding crisis and they might have to lay off employees. Anything you can comment about that or your thoughts on that?
I don't know if we're going to have a funding. I wouldn't call it a funding crisis. I mean, they had a raise last year. There was a tax increase. We can always be better stewards of tax revenue, without a doubt. I personally voted against the tax increase because I just thought it was too high. You don't often hear a politician say that, but in my case, I just know what it's like working in a small municipality and having to balance the books and having to try to figure out how you're going to pay for things and without putting people out of their homes, because everyone's got expenses, everyone's bills are going up, everyone has to pay for gassing. So I don't know if that's a fair assessment to say that, I mean, we're going to have a funding crisis. I would say that as far as a reassessment goes, if I'm not sure what happens, but there's a number of court cases against the county concerning a reassessment. If I was a betting man, I believe there will probably be a court-ordered reassessment probably within the next 6 to 12 months, because I just see the inequity that exists, and I believe a judge is going to order it. I mean, now the county obviously could fight that. I mean, they could appeal that decision, but I believe they're obviously, with the inequality that exists, and this is sort of what led up to the 2012. I mean, what happened in, I mean, the last reassessment with Stanton Weddick and how we got here, how we got there back then. It's very similar circumstances right now. So I think their reassessment, unfortunately, whether you believe that it's a good thing or a bad thing, I believe it's going to be court ordered.
So one of our viewers asked, I'm not exactly sure what this is. Can the DCED fund a fire study for the county? Do you know what that is, Pat? And if you don't,
yeah, Department of Community, no, the Department of Community and Economic Development.
Okay.
They can fund, I mean, there's been a number of studies and studies. I mean, a study is a 4-letter word. Anytime you ask for something, I mean, I nothing against the DCED. I love the DCED. I think very highly of them. I think very highly of everyone that contributes anything to this discussion. But in a perfect world, I would really like to see someone that are experts that that we would basically tell them what we're looking for, and they could come back and provide sort of a nuanced vision for us, I guess. DECD's provided a lot of smaller, when we talk about the county's large. It's not 1.2 million residents. So that'd be a lot of work for the Department of Community and Economic Development. There's been a lot of smaller discussions that they've taken place in municipalities, smaller municipalities, but that would be a monster effort by the DECD, and I'm not even sure they're staffed up for that appropriately, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I think a study's needed, but I agree with you, and we're probably not to that point yet.
Yeah, and the other thing, I mean, this Allegheny County is just a very unique, complex county. So.
It's a complex county because when you think of, I mean, you think of all the municipalities that we have, 130 plus. I mean, some of those municipalities have 3, 4, and 5 stations. So you could have 300 or 400 volunteer fire departments. That's an awful lot for the DCED to take on for a study. I mean, how to try to figure out how that consolidation piece and try to figure out, I mean, what exactly works, what works for this might not work for that. I'm hoping that an RFP, like I said, it will get us to where we need to be at the end of the day, because that would be that would be a worthwhile investment of tax dollars, I think.
Awesome. You have anything?
There's another one
questions?
up there. There's another one up there. Is the county eligible to apply for an AFG Safer grant to seed a program at the county level?
I don't know the answer to that question. And the reason I say that is because since the county technically isn't responsible for fire protection, I don't know what the caveat to that is to provide for that grant. I mean, I would think you'd need to be a local government, and since under state law, we don't have that authority. I would think that, I mean, I would venture to say that we wouldn't be. I mean, that's just my guess, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's probably more designed for individual departments to apply for those grants.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there anything else you had, Dan?
That was very helpful, and can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming on and giving us some firsthand information about these ongoing meetings. And I would imagine they're going to continue to go on for a while, and that's only a good thing.
It's funny because someone asked me at the Wilkins meeting, I mean, why do I think I'm an expert? And I said, I don't really think I'm an expert in anything, but I was asked to help. And I said, I've never told anybody, no, I'm not going to help you. So that's why I'm up here. I said, that's why I'm up here today, taking all of your questions and trying to figure out a path forwards, because like I said, I mean, without you guys running into houses when the rest of us are running out of houses, I don't know what we'd do without volunteer firefighters. And they're a credit to not only Allegheny County, but across the entire nation. So thank you guys for everything that you do.
Okay, Pat.
Absolutely. I appreciate you coming on. I just wanted to say too, I thank you for your efforts, and I'm sure there's other county council people involved in getting that legislation passed for the tax incentive for volunteer firefighters and EMS. Any little bit thing like that helps with recruitment and retention, and I believe people are benefiting from it. Appreciate it, and I just want to thank you also for your efforts on starting these talks and keeping these talks going.
I plan to. I mean, hopefully not in the too distant future, we'll have some more tangible items to bring back to the table for everybody, because I'm sure everyone wants to hear. I mean, it's something that needs to take place, and we all realize. I mean, everyone realizes that. I mean, it's just a matter of how do we get there, and how do we do it as quickly as possible. But it can be done. I'm sure it can be done.
Sounds good. Anytime you guys have an update and you want to be on, we'd love to have you on and hear more.
No problem. I would love to come back. So again, thank you, gentlemen, for this evening.
All right, Pat. Thanks. Safe getting home. Have a good evening. All right. So that was really appreciative. I'm glad he came on. We learned a lot about what's going on with these talks, and
That was good stuff.
yeah. And I mean, obviously, like I know, like he said, I mean, who knows when something can actually come of this, but you got to start to talk somewhere. And he's right about 911. I remember back in the 90s hearing about 911 and how long it took. And as he said, it's 2025 and still all the communities aren't part of 911, the 911 system, truly. So,
Yeah, and that's really eye-opening that the two fire chiefs said what they said. And, I think that's great that they were able to be real and say that. And I think that if fire chiefs all across the county are being honest, a lot of them would have to say the same thing when you compare it to what it used to be. He said 35,000, and it used to be 350,000 volunteers.
yeah.
It's sad, but I don't know that there can be a solution that involves bringing back volunteerism. So
Yeah, I mean,
that's sad.
My idea though is like, I feel volunteer fire departments are always going to be some sort involved in the future. I don't know. I don't foresee the county switching totally to a paid fire service in the future. Maybe a supplemental, like a combination type thing, but I still think volunteers are going to be involved.
I hope you're right, but I mean, I guess it depends what you mean by future. I mean, they have raised the requirements so much that these guys just don't have the time that they're asking them to put in for no compensation. It's just there's no fun, and I sorry to sound negative, I don't see it coming back. 35,000 from 350,000. That's not good.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely will never be back to those levels, and I agree that I think it is partly the time commitment, but I think it's more than that. It's not just a time commitment. I think
culture.
Yeah, the attitudes have changed, and
Yeah.
and
I don't see them changing back.
yeah, I don't know, but I think you'll still have some people that that want to do it, and there'll be some form of volunteerism, I think, going forward. I just don't know where we'll be at, but
All right, we'll leave it at that.
yeah. So but that brings us into our next topic of the podcast today. We're going to talk about the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and what's different from back then when you joined the fire service to what's different today.
Yeah, we could probably do an abbreviated version of that. I'll just start off by, maybe I'll start off by just saying some things that we didn't have. I started in this in like 1973. When I was 14 years old, we were allowed to hang out at the station. They didn't have, you weren't allowed to join until you were 16, and then you had to be on probation until you were 18. So that's kind of the scenario for me. But just to give you the era, it was 1973 is when I started hanging out at the station, and then I was able to join in 1975. So I have been around for a while, and so I'm just gonna name some things that we didn't have. And for the older guys, it may sound like, yeah, you can put that up, Michelle.
Yeah.
There's a for the older guys, this is going to be boring because you already know this stuff. But for the younger guys, it might. There's me up there when I was 16 years old at the McKeesport Fire, which, oh man, I am old. It's going to be 50 years, I believe, this coming, is it May? Whatever.
Where you're right by the tree there.
Right by the tree.
Okay. Yeah, I see.
Yeah, it's 4'11". Yeah, it's pitiful. It's embarrassing, but I was there, and I actually got some action there on a 2.5. I won't go into that story. We'll save that for the 50-year anniversary of McKeesport. So anyway, some of the things we did not have. Yeah, you can take that down, Michelle. So we didn't have cell phones. And again, the old guys, this is boring. The young guys, you really have to think about this. So before cell phones and dash cams and helmet cams, we didn't have any of those. There's a shot of what they used to do to get those moving video of the fire trucks. So, I mean, that puts it into perspective what things were like. We didn't have social media. We didn't even have computers, or CADs in the cab. We didn't have that stuff. We didn't have gas meters back then. A little later, we had some Draeger tubes, which was a glass tube. You had to brake and wait. And so we didn't have ticks. We didn't have drones. Shore forms. We had danger instead. Tripods. We didn't have training shelters or burn buildings. I did. Duty uniforms. We wore blue jeans and T-shirts. We didn't have bunker pants. We didn't have Nomex hoods. We had steam burns regularly to our face. We didn't have any powered hydraulic extrication tools. We didn't have battery electric tools. And we didn't have command systems or 360s. So it was a different time, different culture. Our PPE, which we simply called gear back then, we just had some rubber boots, pull-up hip boots, no half sizes. You just grabbed whatever came close and put them on. We had orange Fireball rubber gloves that would melt to the hot burning car hoods. Helmets were fiberglass or plastic. They melted in any good heat. Turnout coats were heavy canvas or cotton duck, then Nomex. SCBA were 30-minute green steel oxygen tanks. Yes, oxygen. Right after I joined or started hanging around, they switched that from oxygen. They painted them yellow and turned them into air cylinders. They were negative pressure elephant trunk, low pressure breathing tubes. As soon as you went into a hot fire, your air was warmed up from the heat going through that rubber tube. So it was a whole different time. The hose was cotton, absorbed the water, had brass fittings, very heavy. We had to take it back. Instead of packing it on the hose bed, we would have to take it back to the station, rolled up, soaking wet. And then we would have to lay it out on these big racks and pick it up and put it in a huge electric air dryer, leave it in there for several hours before we could pack it back on to the truck. So it was a different time. So that's what it was like.
Well, I know I asked you this before. Well, the first question I have is like, so where'd you keep the horses at back then?
Gill Hall.
But the other question I asked you before, and I don't think you do the answer. I don't know if maybe somebody in the chat might know the answer. Why did they think it was smart to have air tanks filled with oxygen back then, like, instead of regular air?
Don't ask me. We just did what we were told.
Huh.
That's what they were.
Yeah, I don't understand why they did that.
I don't know.
So I have some more questions here for you, and
All
I'll
right.
throw the photo show back up. So, Michelle can go through some of the photos. So when I knew we were doing this, I put together some questions I wanted to ask you. But so the firehouse culture in the 70s and 80s was very different. Obviously, back then it was common to be drinking at the station, and it was totally fine to jump on a rig and respond to a call. That wasn't anything unusual. Times have obviously changed, probably for the good. Maybe depending on who you talk to, maybe it's the bad. But many things were considered acceptable or not today. What behaviors have moved from acceptable to off limits? What are your thoughts on those changes? And which ones had the biggest impact on the fire service for better or for worse?
I don't know. Hold on a minute. I'll go with drinking.
Let me pull you back up on the screen as people see what's going on.
I mean, it's not really a huge problem. At least it wasn't back then. But yeah, I'll go with that. Boy, you start off with a good one. There's a good shot of Yost and Nikolai. I think everybody knows those two. That's local around here. Drinking was definitely part of the culture. Michelle can put some other pictures up, and I think you all know that. I mean, look, we had a good time. There's a photographer in the back there. You can see the 35 millimeter camera. We didn't have cell phones, like I said, and it's different. We had fun. Yes, we were drinking. We were all that the residents had to make their worst day a little bit better, whether we were drinking, whether we were drunk. Look, I'm not proud of it today. This is a long time has passed. Things were different back then. I'm sure some of it still goes on today. It's just hidden. But yeah, we had fun.
I think the next picture isn't it Dan and Michelle at the bar?
No, but look how much fun these guys are having. That's us building the bar in our station. And I'm not going to lie, it got a lot of use. Sure, a lot of people listening right now have been there. It was a different time. So that's all right. That was. Here's the thing. You have to ask yourself as a resident back then, do you want nobody or do you want these firemen to come to your house? And again, I don't want you to think we were all stumbling drunks fighting fires. Drinking was just part of everything back then. I would like to take a little bit of credit when I became chief. I did see it as a problem, with all the legalities and issues and DUIs all started. Remember, that wasn't even an issue back then.
Yeah.
Everybody drank, everybody drove drunk, as horrible as it is. But anyway, I implemented a policy where if you were drinking, don't drive the apparatus. Sounds like a no-brainer, but for back then, that was actually a big step. And the other part of that policy was if you were drunk, don't respond to the fire call. So, if somebody was too drunk and in the station, they didn't respond to that fire call. But the other thing is we had a lot of people responding from home that, had families and weren't always hanging out at the fire hall drinking. So, the crews were good. They did a great job. And I'll tell you what, I'd put them up against anybody for training, response times, and being able to do it all and have a good time. So thanks for that very difficult question.
You're welcome. So another thing that's changed over the years, safety has changed a lot. In the 70s and 80s, many rode the tailboards or stood wherever they basically could on the apparatus to go to calls. Back then, we had open cabs. Today we have enclosed cabs. Today we have seat belts that you have to wear, or annoying alarms go off. So what are your thoughts on the safety improvements? They make any real difference, or are they just overprotecting us? Are we becoming wimps? Or
Again, I'm going to sound like an idiot answering this question, but you pretty much just did. I think safety has destroyed the fire service in some ways. Yes. Riding open air buckets and tailboard, that was the culture. It was fun. Again, there's not enough fun in today's fire service, which in some ways plays a part in why it went from 35,000 or from 350,000 to 35,000. Look, we didn't wait for power companies to get on scene and disconnect the power lines before we would go into a house fire. We just didn't. We would go around the sparking, arcing wire, and we would go in and do it, even if someone wasn't trapped in there. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just telling you the way it was. We went in, put the fire out, saved life and property, pets, whatever. We didn't let that stuff bother us. I told you we didn't have tripods or shore forms. Shore forms is another safety thing, and it's a great thing, and they're fantastic. But if you don't have it on scene and there's someone, buried in dirt in a 9-foot ditch, can't breathe, you don't wait. You got to go in. It's called danger. I know you guys know what it is. You're getting the job done today, but you're just expected to do everything efficiently, but you're also expected to do it safely. And I don't think in every situation that you can always do those two things simultaneously. I'm sure there's a lot of people that will disagree with that. But, the other thing that gets me is, and again, I'm going to take shit for this, but we didn't roll up to a scene where there's a vehicle accident and it has all 4 of its tires are blown off the rims. We're not going to waste time stabilizing that vehicle. It's not going anywhere. If it's pinned between a guardrail and a tree, we're not going to do that. We're going to get in there and do our thing. So again, you're asking me these really difficult questions. Look, I've been in attics putting fires out without a radio by myself. You don't put a lot of people up in an attic. I don't know for sure, but that probably wouldn't happen today.
everybody today would have a radio.
They would have a radio.
For the most part.
When I heard something on the radio the other day, and it is what it is. I would do it today, but back then we didn't worry about unstable decks. We didn't worry about burned out steps. You just crab walk up, or we would do whatever. We would just do it. I've fallen through floors, and I've had someone fall through a floor and land on my head and hurt my back. I'm not. It sounds stupid. I sound stupid answering your damn question. Again, I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
This is the way it was.
Well, I think that's what people are sort of interested. Like, especially obviously the younger viewers to our podcast, they don't know about this, what it was like back then. So that's why I found this interesting to do it. But recently we obviously got our 25 engine. Obviously, you know what that is, but it's a 1975 CF Mac. We recently got it back to our department, and it was there when I was a younger guy. We had it. I think we got rid of it in the late 90s, maybe. So I got to ride it back, when I was a younger firefighter. But going out, standing up on the dog box on the side there, and just looking over the cab, and like, man, this was so fun back then.
There was nothing like.
So lots changed from those times. Yeah. All right. So over your time from firefighter to chief, what tactical changes have you witnessed, which were truly earth-shattering, and where do you think we have overcomplicated things instead of just putting the wet stuff on the red stuff?
I think there's a lot of areas that have been overcomplicated. Once again, I sound like the typical old timer, but incident command, 360s, sectors, divisions, subdivisions, staging, rehab, PAR, displacement, distortion, disassemble. That was the beginning of the end for me. I'm sorry, it just was. I embraced it, but I hated it. And again, I sound stupid, but you asked the question, I answered it.
I was looking at some of these comments here. How many viewers have started with steel bottles and low pressure hoses? So just curious anybody wants to chime up and chat if you start with a steel SCBA or not. So what was it back in the 80s? What was a typical alarm assignment? Is it similar to today when we have multiple companies dispatched on, every call, or how did that work back then?
In the 70s, we didn't really have alarm assignments. We just had engines rolling out, with eight men in like a minute, and then another engine backing it up from the people who weren't in the station, just a couple minutes later. So we rarely even needed mutual aid back in the 70s. But later, in the late 70s, early 80s, we did have what we called 4 company calls in our area. That was Gill Hall, 885, Large, and Pleasant Hills. And that was for, nursing homes, high-rise apartments. Jefferson had just built a hospital. So again, we called it a 4 company call, and it was just all handled locally through the local dispatchers. So we really didn't have running cards until late in the 80s. Then we did run card assignments, but it was nowhere near as extensive as it is today.
So back then, was there a culture of getting out fast and being first in? And that's next photo I was talking about, Michelle. It's the next one. Everybody stand at the bay doors.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, there it is. I don't know what day of the week it was, but honestly, that could have been any day of the week. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it was probably a Saturday. But that was a common thing. We just hung out and waited for a call. But even if we weren't at the station, again, I sound like a whacker now, but I can't tell you the last time I saw a blue light. I don't think anybody uses them.
Yeah.
I mean, I can kind of get that the way traffic is right now, but I don't think that's what it is. I think when the tones go off now, it's a whole different feeling. It's a whole different culture. I don't think the firemen today get as excited as we did back then. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But we really busted our ass to get to the station, get on the rig, and get out the door in like a minute. 90 seconds was a long time back then. And it was important to us to get out with a lot of people on the rig and get there quick. And yeah, it was competitive between companies, but that was a good competition. So I think it's just a different culture. I think now, I'm sure that some of them still respond from home, but honestly, from what I'm listening to on your radio, it sounds like most of this stuff's getting handled from duty crews, and then some stragglers that come in from home whenever they get there.
Yeah, so the blue light thing, I agree. I think back in the day, there's a lot more people with blue lights in their cars. I remember, when I was really young, 18, well, I'll say you're really young, but 18, early 20s, I used to have a blue light, and then I got rid of it. And the reason I got rid of mine, because I found that you could get away with a lot more driving to the station without a blue light on.
They didn't know who you were.
If you had that blue light on, you were calling me in the office to ask me why I blew through a stop sign in front of some old lady or something. So that's one of the reasons I got rid of my blue light back in the day. I know Dylan Coleman, his truck used to be plastered with blue lights, but he's a chief now, so I think he's got red lights.
Yeah, I don't see it anymore.
Yeah, I don't see it too much anymore.
Yeah.
The other thing about talking about, I agree. I think there is a culture shift about trying to get to the station as fast as you can. Now, because I can speak for our company, you're gonna get on a truck because we have 5 pieces of apparatus, and we just all 5 don't get out the door anymore like they used to. And I remember back when I was a younger guy too, if you weren't at the station or close to the station, you definitely weren't going to get on one of those first couple pieces out the door.
Right.
So I think that was part of the sense of urgency to get there if you really wanted to go. And the other thing was, I think so back then, I think we averaged maybe about 300 calls a year or something like that.
When you say back then, what do you mean?
80s. 80s a little bit before me, but like 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I don't think it was a steady rise all the way up, but yeah, that's a good comment. I don't think it was in the 300s in the early 80s, maybe towards the later 80s. And then I mean, even when I left the active service in think it was 2002. I think we were only at like 400 calls. I don't know. What is it now?
Yeah, it depends year to year, but 500, 600 probably on average, I guess. So
Yeah, and that's the problem. Firefighters are going away, and the calls continue to go up. So it's just more and more demand.
And I think what happens now too is like, sorry, you missed this call, and you're like, another call's coming. So maybe that's why some of the urgency isn't there anymore.
That wasn't
I don't know.
even close to anything we would ever think of.
So technology, what changes do you embrace and what changes do you not care for? And we went from low band radios to UHF to big box home monitors, from big box home monitors to clunky pagers to smaller pagers to now nobody even carries a pager. They just get alerted on their phone. We got air conditioning in the rigs. We got thermal imaging cameras. We got multi-gas meters. Talked about a little bit of that, but what changes, technology changes have you seen over the years, and which ones do you actually embrace?
Michelle, you can take that picture down.
I'll just take it
down. I actually like technology, so I don't have anything to tell you.
You like technology?
I do. I like technology and innovation, especially in the fire service. I love it, and I'm sick and tired of, I've been around a long time, and it's just kind of like Pat was saying, everything just takes so damn long. So when a good new invention comes along, I'm all for it. So I like the ticks. How useful are they, man? That's awesome. I love that. Electric tools. I love that every firefighter has a radio now. That's fantastic. And that they don't use it needlessly, which is something, we were pretty bad at back then. The ones that had them.
Like to talk on.
Yeah. Ratchet jaws. So I like all that stuff. What else I have written down here? I know it sounds insignificant, but it was a big deal when the low back pressure nozzles came out. I remember when TFTs first came out. Their advertisement was a lady holding the hose line with one hand, and that made a big difference in our ability to maneuver the hand lines. It's just taken for granted now. That's the CAD and the apparatus. I think it's fantastic. Automatic transmissions sounds stupid, but man, it was hard to drive manual transmissions in Pleasant Hills. Some of the steep streets that we have, it wasn't easy. So that was a big breakthrough. Drones, that episode we did with Portview's drones, I was so impressed with that. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
So that was good. And again, I like innovation, technology, and advancements in the fire service. I don't have anything bad to say about anything.
Talking about changes about people hanging out with fire, but one of the things I always find interesting, I talk to younger guys about that didn't live during this time prior to cell phones. Back in the day, we had to go to the fire hall to see who was around to hang out, because the only other way is I would have to call their house if I had their home phone number. But so the fire hall was sort of a meeting place. We just go there to hang out and wait for people to show up, because there was no way to text somebody and say, hey, what are you doing?
Exactly. I think you just touched on another issue that sounds insignificant, but isn't. It's just human nature to want to be with your buddies and talk to your buddies and talk to people, human beings. And now we just do it on our phones. I know I sound like I'm 66 years old, and I am, but it's true. I think that's a big reason, big contributing factor why we just don't have the response we used to have. It's just not fun anymore.
Yeah, and with the change of times, obviously back early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, you didn't have the entertainment that we have now. You had a TV, maybe a black and white TV or color TV, but you probably had one TV in the house, and you had to be home at a certain time if you want to watch a certain show. Now just everything is on demand. You have TVs in your room, you have computers in your room, you have
podcasts everywhere.
Yeah, podcasts to watch. You have a cell phone, you can pull up all this entertainment. So there's no reason to leave your house now. Back then, it was boring at home, so we left and we went down the fire hall to hang out and play pool on the pool table or play the game machines or just hang out with people and stuff.
Yep.
So
definitely true.
So mental health, was mental health ever talked back about in the 70s and 80s like it is today?
I want to apologize in advance. I'm going to go deep here. The answer to your question is no, and it is really important. It was never mentioned at all, and I'm not even sure it was a problem because nobody knew it was a problem. So you just kind of dealt with it. I ran EMS in the 70s, so I kind of got that end of it too. We'd come back from seeing a man's face hanging off a handrail, and we would just blow it off like it didn't even happen. We'd head to the Blue Flame for breakfast and push it aside. And that's just the way it was. Truth of the matter is, though, my past witnesses are winning the battle for my future. They're many in number. The majority of incidents that I've seen are local to my typical travel patterns. So 5-minute trip to the grocery store ends up being like a 30-year gauntlet of death, depression, hopelessness, and all of that stuff coming back. And because of witnessed death and trauma over and over again, I expect, I foresee, and anticipate death. I know it sounds horrible. It's just the way it is. I don't experience anxiety over it, but I do have issues with depression and guilt. I'm fully aware of it. I've been battling it for decades. I function, which means I'm putting up a good fight, but it is a battle of attrition and I'm getting tired. I'm not sure anyone can help me, but I would like to explore ideas that may allow me to find some peace and happiness for me and my wonderful wife who's sitting over there looking at me. I take her sunshine away. So my advice is to be aware what you're seeing is cumulative. And the trap is to push it aside or think it's not even an issue. And I know that's what you young guys are doing because that's what the trap is. You don't realize it. The problem is that it's as amazing as our brain is, it can only let you play that game for so long. So unless you have no soul, know that this is an issue, even though it may not seem like it right now. She's the best therapy I could possibly have. They can't see
nobody
it.
can see us, but I have a cat climbing up on the. She's climbing up on the bait table.
There
Right now. You
you
might
go.
see her in a second.
There you go. She's going to mess something up.
You're officially accepted, Keith.
So anyway, if you could see what I've seen, you'd look just like me, and I don't want that for you. So you got to let this stuff out as it comes in. Meditation, prayer, music, exercise, and writing are grounding methods that you can try. For the ones you knew, mourn them and remember them. For the ones you couldn't save, find forgiveness, or it will eat a hole in your heart until the day you die. Today, there's help everywhere. Any responsible department will have a path to help. Chipperich talked a little bit about that in the past episode. For the young first responders, be aware of it. Take advantage of the departmental programs in place now. These new tactics can help you before it even sets in. For the old ones, it might not get you until you retire from active service. That's what happened to me. Or you may feel it creeping in. Talk to someone, find ways to cope with it. There's a saying out there about this. It says, everyone has two lives. The second one begins the moment you realize you need help coping with the first one. So I'm sorry for going deep, but I think it's a really important topic, and I'm really happy to see that the books we handed out are starting to circulate and make their way into the hands of people that know who needs them.
I don't think no need to be sorry whatsoever. I think it's obviously something I'm glad you shared with us, and it definitely is an important topic. That's why it was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because I knew back then that nobody talked about this stuff. They just sucked it up and dealt with it, and you were actually sort of I don't want to say the word, but a wimp if you did talk about it. So that's one good thing I like to see change now that people actually can talk about these things and hopefully not carry the burden that people like you and other people have carried from not being able to talk about them. So I just have a couple more questions. We're running a little long, but I think it's a good episode, so we're just going to keep going with the questions. Name one tradition from the 1980s that you would like to see us to revive to build pride or performance without crossing the lines.
We already talked about it, unfortunately. Sorry to say, I think it's too far gone to ever come back, but the tradition for me is volunteers. And I think I compared it to, Today's volunteers have been forced into near extinction by demanding more training and time that they have to give, coupled with an environment of safety at all costs, fear of litigation, no tolerance for alcohol or fun of any kind. They've been overfished like bluefin tuna. It will soon be all but gone forever and part of the history books. And I am known to be Danny Downer. Fully admit that. But I couldn't be more serious about what I just said. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope the volunteers can come back. But if you just look at the graph of how it's crashing and how the other graph, which is other departments who are taking steps to go paid, combination, full paid, whatever, that graph's going up. And if you look at EMS, they're way ahead of us. They've already consolidated and bought each other up and are to a point where they're handling several districts. We're not. We have more equipment than anybody, and we're still not able to handle it because without the manpower, nothing gets done.
2 more questions for you. I'll stop this gauntlet of questions for you. Name one current habit or policy that you cannot stand. And while you answer, I'm going to throw the photos back up. Michelle can scroll through the rest of the ones that we have.
What I can't stand, there's really not much that I can't stand in the fire service. Obviously, I'm annoyed with.
Hey, not to interrupt you. What was that? This one, Claritin?
Yeah, I don't remember what street. We had so many in Claritin. Usually they were on New Year's Eve or in the winter, but there was a lot of structure fires in Claritin back then, and they would call us for our aerial truck, as you can see. I think that was when it was still 70 feet. You can see all the spaghetti on the ground. So I don't know what the address was. I'm sure somebody in Claritin knows exactly what it was. But the only thing that really I hate and despise in the fire service is being around it for going on 50 years now and just seeing how long it takes to this slide down. It needs to be addressed. And I've been addressing it now for 30 years, maybe more. I really haven't done much since I left, but I tried several times to consolidate, merge with other departments, shut down every single time by the same thing. It was always the same thing. It was egos and self-interests every single time. And I hate to say it, but I foresee the same thing happening in these meetings going forward. I hope I'm wrong. Is that a pressed ham? See, we had fun back then. That's a pressed ham in the bullmobile. But anyway, what I
was trying to get that one on full screen. I hit the wrong button.
There you have it,
There's a good one.
folks. A pressed ham. That's me when I think I was maybe a lieutenant or captain with my best buddy Nikolai. We all know him. So anyway, that's what I despise: egos and self-interest. Nobody thinks of the bigger good.
Last question I have for you. If you could give your 1970s probationary junior self advice, knowing what you know today, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I'd train as much as you possibly can and look at the big picture. I was too interested in just Pleasant Hills. Didn't want to leave. I didn't want to go anywhere. Loved my guys. I wanted to just be there the rest of my life, and here I am. So I stayed there, and I watched not everybody, but I watched a lot of people go do what I probably should have done. I did have an opportunity. It was in the 80s, mid 80s or whatever, I had a good shot at getting a paid fire position in Naples, and I didn't do it. Do I regret it? I don't know. There's been so much good in my life here. Maybe I don't regret it, but I would highly recommend that if you're in the fire service now, get as much possible training as you possibly can and get ready, because again, I think just like Craig McDivitt said in that piece earlier, I think it's inevitable. It's all going to be paid, and there's going to be a lot of hires coming soon. So you need to be ready for it. I love that picture. We don't have social media. There's a picture of my late brother George shaking hands with a lieutenant from Blawnox at a basic vehicle rescue class, and that's how it was done. Face to face. I don't think he's saying, "Hey, hit me up on Facebook."
Yeah. Shoot me a text. Get me on Snapchat.
Yeah. Yeah. He's probably saying, "I saw you in that calendar. Wanted to meet."
Yeah. That's probably is. Yeah.
That'd be my guess. There's Kevin Grimm and a smoke drill. I mean, that's what we did with these guys. We would lure them in from the playground across the street, which sounds horrible, but we would lure them in with free pop. And then within weeks, they didn't know what hit them. We would build mazes with the banquet tables upstairs, and then we would throw the metal chairs at them. And this isn't a picture of that, but we trained them well from an early age, and it paid off for us. We had probably one of the best manned departments around back then.
So what else you got?
There's Billy Walls, Joe Kenny.
Yeah, look up Deputy Chief Gino up there,
Yeah.
right hand side.
Yeah, who did I say he looked like earlier? Who?
David
Bowie. Doesn't he look like David Bowie? There's Chief Jim Rush.
Looks like a stoner. That's what he looks like.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep. That's it. Michelle, you did great.
Yeah, awesome job, Michelle. So before we roll out here, I want to do another shout out to FireCam. So don't forget, if you sign up on our X channel, subscribe to our X channel, you'll be one of the first 200 people can join and get a chance to win the new FireCam Blackjack flashlight, which is the BJ 1000 kit. It's a must-have for interior firefighting. It's a multi-functioning fire helmet flashlight. Provides an optimal, high-power, white adjustable beam for firefighting in dark smoke-filled environments. It's a great flashlight, and I recommend that you go to our X channel, subscribe, and enter for a chance to win. And that's pretty much all I have. Unless, Dan, you have something else?
Is David Bowie on?
David Bowie is coming to the stage here. Couldn't end the show without Deputy Chief Gene.
How's it going, Gene? Can you hear us?
Great show, guys. Seriously.
Your mic's muted.
Oh, hold on.
You can hear him? I can't hear him. I don't know.
Oh,
what we
well,
can hear him.
I know what you're going to say, so I guess I'll have to say
Oh, you know
it
what?
for you.
Say it again. I think the cat hit the mute button.
You there?
Yeah, we got you
The
now.
cat did it. Isabel did that.
All right. Well, guys, again, like I said before, you didn't hear me, but what an awesome episode really was. The council president, through everything you've talked about, Dan, and I'll just say a few things before I say what I'm going to say is, Dan, that's a very important personality trait that you have that a lot of people, most of the time, take it as Dan's just pissed at me. And I did for years and years and years. I used to go home at night and say to myself, man, that guy does not like me. And it's just you being real. And but anyway, that's what I wanted to say, Dan, to you. And another thing, Dan, is think about this, Dan. I really want to do this, and I really want to do the Ibogaine treatments. I want you to look it up and seriously consider it, because I'm seriously considering it. And from what I understand and all the things that I've done with it, there's no negative side effects from what I can read. But think about it for a while. But let's keep this county thing talking. Let's do this. Let's do something, at least a 5-minute segment once a week, so we can keep this rolling. We got to keep it rolling.
I agree. It's time.
Yeah,
It's time.
It's time. And I think we could be a launch pad for a lot of good ideas and maybe help down the road. I'd love to.
I feel like Pat is really giving it his all, and I also feel like he's maybe hitting a couple roadblocks where he doesn't really know how much further he can go before he starts getting some local help and some positive input from some local people.
Refreshing to see that he's this positive about it, to be
Yeah,
honest.
it is.
All right.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great start. But I just want to remind everybody, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our X channel. Next week, hopefully, we should be streaming live on Facebook. There is a waiting period till you can stream live on Facebook, but I think next week is going to be our first episode that will stream live on YouTube, X channel, Facebook, and I don't know where else we even stream. We stream a lot of places. Well, Dan, you have anything you want to say before we go?
Well, no, I'm going to let Gene say his thing. Yeah. In fact, it's funny, Gene, before you say it, I don't know whether you caught that when Pat was talking, but those two fire chiefs, what they said, were you watching?
Now, you know what? We had a mutual out of town.
All right.
I had a truck out, and I must have missed that one part.
He said two of the fire chiefs in these meetings said if the citizens could see how bad we suck, this would be a much more important issue.
Unfortunately, they don't see it until tragedy happens.
Yep.
So, all right, guys. Well, I'll say it, and I'll see you guys this week coming up. But everybody, try not to suck.
All right, Gene.
All right.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Make sure you subscribe, like our channel. And if you guys have any comments or anything, please put them in the chat. Send us an email. Everybody have a good week. Be safe out there. Be safe out there, Gina.
Thank you.
See you, buddy.